Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring our senses, specifically touch, pain, and sight.
Should be interesting.
I was taking a look at the research, and it's incredible. Like, we're not just scratching the surface of how they work.
Right, yeah.
It's more like we're going deep into all the little details and connections, like how they all work together.
Exactly.
So get ready for some seriously cool stuff.
Mm.
Okay, let's start with touch. Now, most people, when they think about touch, they think skin,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. Touch is really about this network of receptors and nerves sending signals to the brain. It's a communication system almost, a complex one. Like, for example, have you ever heard of dermatomes?
Oh, dermatomes.
Yeah, so basically they're areas of skin
Right.
connected to a single spinal nerve.
Interesting.
And doctors have really used these dermatome maps to diagnose spinal cord injuries.
Wow.
It's like a sensory roadmap.
So, like, by knowing which areas have lost sensation, they can tell where the injury is on the spine.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible what they can do.
So we've got these nerves sending all these signals. What about the different ways we feel things?
Right.
Like a soft feather
Yeah.
versus like a firm handshake. How do we sense those differently?
So that comes down to our mechanoreceptors.
Mechanoreceptor.
We've got four main types, each tuned to a specific kind of touch. So for those really light touches, there are Merkel cells.
Merkel cells. Got it.
Then you've got Meissner's corpuscles. They detect fine details and vibrations.
Okay, so those are for more precise sensations.
Exactly. Think like reading Braille.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's Meissner's corpuscles at work. Then we go deeper. You've got Pacinian corpuscles. They're the specialists for deep pressure, high-frequency vibration.
Smooth pressure. Okay.
And lastly, Ruffini endings. Those are all about sensing skin stretch.
Skin stretch. Okay. So it's like we have a whole team of tiny sensors
You got it.
working together just under our skin.
It's amazing, isn't it?
So does that mean some parts of our body are like more sensitive than others?
Exactly, like your fingertips.
Uh-huh.
They're incredibly good at distinguishing between close points, like the dots on a Braille page.
Oh, right.
They're packed with those Merkel cells.
Okay.
And those cells have very small receptive fields, meaning they can pick up on tiny, tiny details.
So that's why we use our fingertips for, the more delicate tasks.
It's not just habit.
Right.
It's because they're designed for precision.
Wow. It's really making me think about things like prosthetics now.
That's where this research is going. They're trying to mimic this sensitivity.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by putting sensors in prosthetic limbs that can actually detect different types of touch and pressure.
So in the future, people with prosthetics might be able to, like, really feel the world again.
That's the goal. Imagine being able to, pick up an egg without crushing it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So we've got touch, all these amazing sensors in our skin, but then there's also this thing called proprioception. Is that like a sixth sense?
In a way, yeah. It's how we know where our body is in space, even without looking.
You mean like how I can touch my nose without seeing it?
Exactly. Or how you can walk without constantly looking at your feet.
Wow, I never thought of it like that. So how does it work? Are there like special sensors for that too?
Absolutely. Proprioception relies on muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs.
Muscle spindles and muscles. Golgi tendon organs.
Yeah, so muscle spindles detect changes in muscle length. So is the muscle stretching or contracting? Your brain needs to know that.
Right.
And then the Golgi tendon organs measure muscle tension. So whether you're reaching for a cup of coffee or doing a ballet dance, your brain is getting this constant feedback.
So it knows exactly what all our muscles are doing.
And that allows us to have smooth movements and coordination. Pretty cool, huh?
That's amazing. I never realized how much was going on behind the scenes just to make simple movements possible. Okay, let's move on to something a little less pleasant now. Pain.
Pain. Can't live with it. Can't live without it.
Right. I mean, it hurts, but you got to admit, it's crucial for survival.
Oh, absolutely. It's our body's alarm system,
Yeah.
telling us something's wrong. Pay attention. And it's all thanks to our nociceptors.
Nociceptors.
These specialized nerve cells that detect potentially damaging stimuli.
So are all nociceptors the same? Like, does a burn feel the same as, say, a stubbed toe?
Well, there are actually different types. So you've got A fibers. They transmit sharp, immediate pain.
Like when you touch a hot stove?
Exactly. And then there are C fibers. Those are the ones responsible for the dull, throbbing pain that sets in a little later.
So that's why there's that double whammy. First the ouch, then the ache. It's like a two-phase alert.
Exactly.
But how do those signals actually get from the source of the pain all the way to our brain?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. We've got two main pathways.
Two pathways. Okay.
The anterolateral system, which is like the express lane for pain and temperature.
The express lane. Got it.
And then we've got the dorsal column medial lemniscal system. More of a scenic route, you could say, carrying info about touch, pressure, and vibration.
Okay, so two different highways for different types of signals.
Exactly.
But isn't pain kind of, I don't know, subjective?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like what hurts one person might not even faze another.
Pain is so complex. There are so many factors influencing how we perceive it. Emotions, past experiences, even cultural background.
So it's more than just a signal, it's how our brain makes sense of it.
Exactly. And it all gets processed by this network of brain regions we call the pain matrix.
The pain matrix.
Yeah, it includes areas like the thalamus, the somatosensory cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex.
A lot of brain power going into this.
Right. It allows us to experience pain in its full complexity. Not just the physical ouch, but also the emotional and cognitive aspects, too.
That's amazing. Okay, so what about referred pain? It's always baffled me. How can you feel pain in one part of your body, but it's actually coming from somewhere else?
It's like a trick the brain plays on itself. Referred pain happens because the nerves from different parts of the body can kind of converge.
Converge.
Yeah, on the same pathways in the spinal cord. So the brain gets confused about the source of the pain signal.
Oh, wow. So it's like getting your wires crossed.
Exactly. A classic example is when people have a heart attack and feel pain in their arm.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
So the signals from the heart and arm are getting mixed up in the spinal cord.
Exactly. The brain thinks the pain is coming from the arm, even though it's actually the heart.
That's incredible. It just shows how connected everything is. But what about when pain becomes chronic? Does the nervous system get stuck in pain mode?
It can, unfortunately. It's a process called sensitization.
Sensitization.
Yeah, the nervous system becomes more responsive to pain over time. Could be because of an injury, inflammation, even psychological factors. It's like the volume control for pain gets turned up. Even mild things start to feel intense.
So it's not that the original injury is still hurting, it's that the whole system is more sensitive now.
Right.
Wow, that's a scary thought. And then there's this whole other level of weirdness with phantom limb pain. Like, how can you feel pain in a limb that's not even there?
It's one of the biggest mysteries in neuroscience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we think phantom limb pain is caused by changes in both the peripheral and central nervous system. After an amputation, the nerves in the remaining part of the limb can keep firing, sending those pain signals to the brain.
So even though the limb is gone, the nerves are still acting like it's there?
In a way, yeah. And then the brain itself can also change. The areas that used to get input from the amputated limb can become hyperexcitable.
So it's like the brain is holding on to a memory of the limb.
Kind of, yeah.
That's both fascinating and, well, really sad. Are there any treatments for it?
There are, yeah. Medications can help manage the pain, and some therapies, like mirror therapy, can be really effective.
Mirror therapy.
Yeah, you use a mirror to create a visual illusion of the missing limb.
Oh, wow. So you're tricking the brain into seeing the missing limb.
Exactly. And sometimes that's enough to reduce the pain signals.
That's incredible. Okay, we've talked about the physical side of pain, but what about the psychological aspect?
Oh.
Our mood can definitely affect how much pain we feel.
Absolutely. The placebo effect is a perfect example of that. The power of our expectations.
Right, like if you believe you're getting pain relief, even if it's just a sugar pill, your pain often decreases.
Exactly. It's like the brain, convinced it's getting help, starts to produce its own painkillers.
That's so wild. Is there like a mind over matter switch in the brain or something?
It's not quite a switch.
Right.
But there are neurological processes involved. When we expect pain relief, certain areas of the brain become active. The prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex. These areas regulate emotions, expectations, our response to pain.
I see.
And that activity can trigger the release of endorphins, our body's natural painkillers.
So it's not just wishful thinking. There's a real physical change happening.
Exactly. The brain is a powerful thing. This whole discussion about the placebo effect reminds me of the gate control theory of pain.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. It's like there's a gatekeeper in the spinal cord that decides which pain signals reach the brain.
That's a great way to think about it. The theory suggests that other sensory inputs can actually modulate the pain signals.
Modulate?
Yeah, like non-painful stimuli like touch or vibration can actually compete with pain signals.
Yeah.
They're both trying to get through the gate in the spinal cord.
So if the gate is closed to pain signals, they can't get to the brain.
Exactly. And we don't feel the pain.
So that's why things like massage or even just rubbing a sore spot can help. They're closing the gate to the pain signals.
Exactly. By activating those other sensory pathways, we can drown out the pain.
That's incredible. And it explains why things like acupuncture work too, right?
Absolutely. It's all about understanding how the nervous system processes these signals.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground with touch and pain. It's amazing how complex and interconnected these senses really are.
I know. And we're just scratching the surface. There's still so much more to discover.
That's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Exactly. It's a reminder that our bodies are these incredible machines, always working behind the scenes to keep us safe and functioning.
Absolutely. Well, now that we've explored touch and pain, I think we're ready to move on to the fascinating world of vision. Get ready to see things in a whole new light.
Haha, I see what you did there. All right, let's dive into it. All right, so vision, the marvel of sight.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this one. It's amazing how much we take in through our eyes every day. Like, we just don't even think about it.
Right. It really is remarkable. The visual system, I mean, talk about intricate. But it all starts with the eye, like a camera capturing light, focusing it onto the retina.
Ah, the retina. So that's where the whole seeing thing happens. I've always wondered what it actually does.
Well, think of it like a screen, but a multi-layered screen, packed with these specialized cells.
Oh, okay.
And they transform that light into electrical signals.
Wait, so light becomes electricity?
Yeah. It's called phototransduction, a mind-blowing process. You've got these photoreceptor cells called rods and cones. The rods are like the super sensitive ones, for low light.
Ah, so those are what let us see in the dark.
Exactly, but they don't perceive color. The cones, on the other hand, those are all about color, and they're concentrated in this area called the fovea. That's the central part of the retina, responsible for that sharp, detailed vision.
Okay, so that's why we can see shapes in the dark, but it all looks kind of grayish, like our night vision mode.
Yeah.
But how does color vision work? Are the cones like mixing up different colors like paint?
It's actually more like a three-way split. You have three types of cones, each sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. Short ones for blue, medium for green, and long for red.
Oh, so each cone is specialized.
Yeah, and by comparing the signals from these three cone types, our brain, it creates the full spectrum of colors that we see.
That's amazing. What about people who are colorblind then? Is something different happening with their cones?
Usually color blindness, it results from a deficiency or sometimes a complete absence of one or more of these cone types. The most common type is red-green color blindness, and it's actually more common in men.
Oh, really? Why is that?
The genes responsible for those cones, they're located on the X chromosome.
Ah, that makes sense. It's crazy how genetics can have such a big impact on our senses. Even with normal color vision, the way we perceive color can change depending on the lighting, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, those optical illusions where the same color looks different depending on its background?
Yeah, those are trippy.
They really highlight how our brains don't just record color passively, we actively interpret it. The context, the surrounding colors, they all play a role.
So our brain is like a photo editor, constantly adjusting the colors so we see things consistently.
Exactly. It's called color constancy. Super important for us to perceive the world accurately.
That's fascinating. Okay, so the light hits the retina, gets translated into electrical signals. Where do those signals go next?
They travel along the optic nerve. It's a bundle of nerve fibers that carries that info from the eye to the brain.
Okay, so it's like a data cable sending visual information to headquarters. But where in the brain does it end up?
First stop is the lateral geniculate nucleus, LGN for short. It's in the thalamus. That's a part of the brain that acts like a sensory switchboard, kind of routing all the incoming information.
Right.
From the LGN, the signals are sent to the primary visual cortex that's at the very back of the brain in the occipital lobe.
So there's a whole chain of command for visual information.
Yeah.
But what happens in the visual cortex? Is it like a movie screen projecting the image?
It's more like a processing center, with different areas specializing in different aspects of the visual scene. Some parts are dedicated to detecting edges, others for motion, others for depth. It's like a team of experts, each working on a piece of the puzzle.
Wow. So our brain is constantly analyzing all that raw data from our eyes. No wonder vision takes up so much brain power.
It's a lot of work, but our brains are incredible. I've always wondered about 3D vision. Our eyes are basically flat, so how do we see depth?
That's a great question. It's all about binocular vision. Because our eyes are slightly apart, Each eye captures a slightly different view of the world. That difference is called binocular disparity.
Oh, I see. So it's like having two cameras taking pictures from different angles.
Exactly. And the brain uses that difference to figure out how far away things are.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's crucial for navigating our surroundings, judging distances, interacting with objects.
It's amazing how something as simple as having two eyes gives us this whole three-dimensional experience.
I know, right?
Hmm.
But it's not just about passively receiving visual information, is it? We're also moving our eyes all the time.
You're absolutely right. Eye movements are key for visual perception. We make these rapid eye movements called saccades.
Saccades.
Yeah, they're like quick jumps our eyes make to scan the scene.
Like when we're reading.
Exactly. Or when we're looking around a room, they're incredibly fast and precise, making sure that the image lands on the fovea.
So it's like we're constantly taking snapshots with our eyes, and the brain is stitching them together.
That's a great way to think about it. And this whole process, it's guided by attention. That's what allows us to focus on the most important information and filter out distractions.
So it's not just about what our eyes see, it's about what our brain chooses to focus on.
Exactly. Attention acts like a spotlight, highlighting what's relevant at that moment.
So our brain is making decisions about what to pay attention to based on what's important for us at that moment.
Right. It's influenced by both, bottom-up factors like how bright or moving something is, and top-down factors like
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
Makes sense. But with all this complex processing going on, vision must be a real energy drain on the brain.
Well, the brain is a busy organ, that's for sure. But our visual system has become incredibly efficient over millions of years of evolution.
So it's like our brain has developed energy-saving modes for vision.
Exactly. Like a hybrid car. It can adjust its processing power depending on the demands. If we're looking at a static scene, it can kind of relax. But when we need to process something fast, like a speeding car, it can ramp up the activity to make sure we can react quickly.
Wow. Our brains are incredible. It's like they're multitasking masters. But even with all this amazing machinery, our vision isn't perfect, right? We all fall for optical illusions, and sometimes we just miss things that are right in front of us.
Right. Those imperfections are a reminder that our visual system isn't a perfect recording device. It's an active interpreter, constructing our reality based on the information it receives. And that information can be incomplete or ambiguous, and our perception can be influenced by everything we know and believe.
So we're all creating our own unique visual reality.
Oh, way, yeah. Based on our individual experiences and perspectives. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. Well, we've covered a lot of ground with vision today, from the anatomy of the eye all the way to the complex processing in the brain. It's clear that there's so much more to vision than meets the eye. It really makes you appreciate just how much our brains are doing all the time. And, it's not always perfect, is it?
Oh, yeah, definitely not. Like, have you ever heard of inattentional blindness?
Is that like that experiment where people are so focused on counting basketball passes they miss a gorilla walking by?
That's the one. It's a classic.
I've seen the video. It's crazy.
It shows just how powerful selective attention can be. Our brains, they're filtering out information they think is irrelevant.
And sometimes that means missing something right in front of us.
Exactly, like you have blinders on.
Well, I guess it makes sense, evolutionarily speaking.
Right.
Like if our ancestors were distracted by every little thing.
Yeah, they wouldn't have lasted long. Trying to hunt while being fascinated by a butterfly.
Not a good survival strategy.
Not at all.
Okay, so our brains are filtering information. But what about controlling how much light gets into our eyes in the first place? Like, I know our pupils play a role, but how does that work?
So the pupil, it's like the aperture on a camera lens. It can constrict or dilate, controlling how much light hits the retina.
Oh.
And that's all controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Happens automatically.
So like bright sunlight, pupils get smaller to protect our eyes?
Right.
And dim light, they get bigger to let in more light.
Exactly, like built-in sunglasses. But our eyes aren't just regulating light, they're also constantly moving, scanning, focusing.
Right.
We do this through, there are smooth pursuit movements, that's for tracking moving objects.
Yeah.
And then there are saccadic eye movements.
Saccadic.
Yeah, those are the quick jumps our eyes make, like when you're reading or just looking around a room.
It's funny, you never really think about your eyes making all those tiny jumps.
They're so small you don't even notice. But they're crucial for bringing different parts of the scene into focus.
So it's like our eyes are taking these high-resolution snapshots, and our brains are piecing them together.
That's a great way to put it. It's this amazing collaboration between the eyes and the brain. And it just happens, we don't even have to think about it.
It's pretty incredible.
It really is. It speaks to the power and efficiency of our visual system.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive into our senses has been amazing. From touch to pain to vision, there's just so much going on.
I know. And we've just scratched the surface. Neuroscience is constantly evolving, every new discovery. It just highlights how intricate our senses are.
Yeah. And even though we use our senses every single day, there's still so much we don't know.
Exactly. But that's what makes it so exciting to study. As we wrap up, I'd encourage you to think about your own sensory experiences. Really pay attention to how things feel, how pain can teach you things, the amazing visual world around you. There's a whole universe of sensations out there waiting to be explored.
That's a great point. Understanding how our senses work, it helps us appreciate the world around us, but also it can help us manage pain, improve our vision, really enhance our lives.
Absolutely.
So go out there, keep exploring the world of your senses. You might be surprised by what you discover.